Hi, this is Susan from Cochenille Design Studio, and today I'm going to do a pattern quickie with Garment Designer, and I'm going to build a man's dress shirt. Here we have a shirt and pattern that was created by one of our customers, Carl McClelland, and he graciously agreed to share this with you. Carl was so excited by making shirts that he built multiples for an upcoming vacation. As always, I like to start any project with an analysis. And there are many different styles of dress shirts you can build, but in this particular one, we're going to have a two-piece collar. We will use a center front extension that folds back to build the placket. We will do a sleeve placket and cuff on the sleeve, and I will use a shirt tail hem. A pocket, of course, is optional. I've just opened the program in Garment Designer, and so let's begin by choosing a men's size. So we go down to men's, and I think I would choose a size 40, which indicates more or less a size 40-inch chest. If you want to see what body measurements we use, you go to the Sloper menu and choose Edit. And here you can see in inches all our measurements. These may be changed to personalize them. And you can also choose to work in metric as well. So now we have our basic measurement and body. We are seeing the sloper sitting inside of the pattern, and you can see the amount of ease. Should I decide to turn on a grid, then I can see in inches how much ease between the pattern and the body. But for now, I'll leave the grid off because it keeps things pretty busy on the screen. So there are many different styles you can choose and elements of styles that you can combine. But let's start by making this be a shirt tail style. And the shirt tail exists in one of our style sets. So we're going to have a slightly curved hem. And then also I want to have the front not be joined. So I'm going to go into pieces and choose just to have the left front. I only really need half a shirt to do the design, and this will give us more real estate on the screen. So here we have our display. So we're going to then go ahead with the neckline. I'm going to use pretty much a standard fitted neckline, so a round standard neckline as you see here. I want the basic set in sleeve in this case, so I'll keep it separate, set in standard. But often with a men's shirt, I like to use the slightly lower cap, so I'll choose that option. And, you know, if I have a favorite men's shirt for someone I'm making a shirt for, I can take some measurements off of that actual garment to see if I'm in the same ballpark as the style that the person likes to wear with regards to fit. Okay, so now for a sleeve, we want to have a standard sleeve. But I'm going to go into the extras menu and turn on cuffs. And this brings us a sleeve, and it puts on the cuff immediately. And this is the tailored wrist cuff, which is what we want. And you have a couple different options here. As you can see when I change them, what's changing is how full the sleeve is. So that basically is up to you as the designer of the garment, if you want a fuller sleeve being put into the cuff or a regular sleeve into the cuff. So now we've got the sleeve, we've got the cuff. The next thing we will want to add is a collar. This is also found in extras, and so I'm going to choose joined at back. And I default into the convertible style, which is in the full roll collars. But we want to have, in our case, you could either choose a one-piece collar, in which case the stand and the fall are in the same pattern piece, or you could choose to have a two-piece collar, should you want to, in which case they are separate. So we will go with this. And I think now you can see why I choose to only have half a shirt displayed, because things start to get busy. All right, so now we'd like to build the placket for the front. And so I'm temporarily going to just disable the extras. They're still there. I'm just turning them off temporarily so that what I see on the screen is a little bit bigger. If I want to widen the neck, I can click inside a piece to see all the points and click, let's just say I want the neck just a little wider, and my collar will update automatically. Or if I want to change the depth of the armholes, I can do that as well. Or if I want a slightly offset or slight drop shoulder, I can do that also. With all of these, you have the option. So let's just say I'm going to lower the armhole just a little bit more. And so notice that when I change the front depth, the back went with it. And that is because we have a function called symmetry, and it's currently turned on. I'm going to accept the default length, which is hip length of the garment. But if I wanted to change it, I could come into here and using this menu, change the length. We'll just let it be as it is right now. And so now I have pretty much designed everything as I see fit. I've got my lower cap, but I do need to plan for the extension at the front for a placket for the buttons. So I'm going to double click down here on the symmetry icon. I'm going to turn front back symmetry off because I only want to do this operation to the front pattern. So I'm going to click on the center front and I'm going to go to additions and I'm going to add an extension. And I'm going to make my extension, I can type the name in here if I want to, center front extension. But I'm going to make it be about 3/4 of an inch because the general rule of thumb is the extension beyond center front should be half the width of the button plus maybe 1/4 inch. So I'm not going to have very large buttons, so I'm just going to click that, and that gives me my extension. And then if I want to plan to have a facing, I can click on this and do a facing piece, and it will face it. There's a couple ways to do this. I can either go here and go to additions and say add a facing, and I only want this facing to be 1.5, okay. In which case it builds this. So this is one way, but now let's just delete the facing. And I can do this just by pressing E and zeroing out the number. Another way I can do this to have it attached to the pattern so it will simply fold back is I'm going to add another extension of 1.5 inches. Let's just start with that. So we're going to do a second extension on top of the first. And I'll just call it extension 2, and whereas the first one was 3/4 of an inch, let's make this one be 1.75, which allows me to fold it back from this point here and have a little extra. So it's going to fold here and come back and then have a little bit of extra. And I can play around with that should I want. I'm allowing myself some to serge off if I'm going to do that or fold under, etc. Okay, so now as you can see, I have resaved the file to update it. And I just have a couple more things to do before I put on seam allowances. So just to explain, I'm going to go and turn back on the display of the extras pieces. And we can see the lower collar, the upper collar, and the cuff. When you build collars, the collars measure from center front neck, up the neckline, and this is 5 5/8, and the back neckline is 4 1/4. So here on the under collar, you can see the 4 1/4 from center back to shoulder point, and the 5 5/8 from shoulder point to the center front. But it does not account for the additional created by having an extension for my buttons. So I need to add 3/4 of an inch to both the undercollar and the overcollar. So to do that, I am going to select the points on the lower collar, just these points here, and I'm going to use my arrow key to nudge outwards until I hit 6 1/8. So 5 5/8 plus 3/4 equals 6 3/8 actually. So there I am. And then I need to do the same to the upper collar pleats. And so I have 9 3/8, and I need to add 3/4 to that, which equals 10 1/8. So I'm going to keep nudging until I hit 10 1/8. So that completes that as well. And the last step before I add seam allowances is to actually go through and join both sides of some of the pattern pieces. So right now I am in adjacent mode with the sleeve and the 2 collar pieces. So the quick way to do a join is just to click inside a piece and press J for joined. So I've done that with the sleeve. I will do this with the upper collar. I'm going to do this with the lower collar. And now everything is great. Sometimes I can see a little jiggy-jaggy in my collar, so if I zoom in a little and scoot over, I can see if there is a problem, and there's not. It's just sometimes the resolution of the screen might lead you to believe that things are not straight when indeed they are. So always zoom in to check. So we'll get back out so we can see everything. So at this point, we're going to add seam allowances. We're not adding any hems because we're going to use a seam allowance for the hem by turning it over twice and top stitching. So to do the seam allowances, we simply go up to the additions menu and choose global seam allowances. And I always default to 1/2 inch. It's up to you what you choose to use. And global is going to put them everywhere. Now we don't necessarily want them at center back because we want to remember to lay this garment on the fold. And we don't want them on the extension because we've already built in everything we need for turning under 1/4 inch on the edge of the extension. So at this point, we ensure that we have front-back symmetry turned off, if you haven't already. And that will allow us to click on the center back seam and go to Additions, Custom Seam Allowance, and choose 0, which removes it there. And then we can click also on the center front seam, and actually you just click on center front and go to Addition, Custom Seam Allowance, and do 0 there as well, and that will change that all out. Now, I usually like to go in and at this stage, check to see if there's any problems in my pattern. So you can go to Generate Information Recommendations. We'll just pull this up. We've done very little point movement, so I don't expect there to be any problems, but if there would be a problem, something would be flagged by turning red. Garment Designer measures all of the seams. It measures the armhole and the sleeve cap, and how much, it will tell you how much there is to ease. Usually with point movement, the things that can happen is that the angle of a corner where two seams are going to join, if it's not a good angle, you'll get a blip when you put the shoulder seam together, for example. So it will always tell you what your angles measure and flag if it thinks that you need to make a change. But we don't have any problems here, so all is good. And then my last step is to display final pattern mode. And when I do this, then I can see the equivalent of notches, which will help me match pieces together when I am sewing. So let's go ahead and save the file again because we've made changes. And then what I would like to do is introduce you to the concept of being able to add information into your file. So I'm going to go to Options, User Header Fields. And if I want, I can give this project a name that will print on the pattern pieces. So I'm going to call it Men's Dress Shirt Size 40, even though the size would appear on that. And I could also add maybe the fabric. And for this, we'll say Oxford cloth. And even if I wanted to add a client, I could do that as well. And click OK. And then this will appear on pattern pieces. It will also appear on the project summary, should you do that. As well as on information and recommendations. And it's just handy to do it because it's always saved with the file. We're now ready to print. And so let's make the assumption that in this case, we're going to tile print onto regular sheets of paper for a standard printer. Before I actually print out the pattern pieces, what I usually like to do is print out this entire image as you're seeing here. I call it my schematic. It's basically a visual record of the project. And so usually what I'll do for that is go into page setup and choose landscape mode. And then choose my printer, of course. And then when I print, because this is wider than it is tall, it will print nicely in a landscape mode. So let's just presume I've done that. And now I'm getting ready to do the pattern pieces. And so I have somewhat of a dance I do every time I am setting up for this. You get to decide if you want the sloper included on the pattern or not. So let's assume in this case we've decided not. So I will just choose Show Pattern. I usually choose not to have the dimensions print on outside of the pattern pieces because it takes up more paper to do that. And then I like to have my grid displayed as I print because it represents grain line. And also it just helps in matching up the pages. Even though we do give you hatch marks for matching all the pages, I still like to have the grid print on the pattern. So we are now ready to display, and we'll say scale to actual size. And this is based on the paper size that you have set for your printer. Right now I'm in A4. So it will scale to actual size, and then you can tell it to do show pagination, and it's breaking all your pattern pieces up into multiple pages, and then you can ask for print preview. And so it's here that I can see how many pages are going to print, and if I scoot all the way over, I can see it's about 36 pages. This is in landscape mode, so I will always go in and compare it to doing portrait mode. My experience is portrait mode is a little more efficient, but it depends on the shape of your pattern pieces, etc. So now we're down a couple pages. So I would choose to print this in portrait mode. And now when I go to File Print, I'll just come back here to show you again where the paper size is. So this is where you choose your paper size. It will tile all the pages, and there will be hatch marks for aligning everything up, and then you start taping things together. We do have a video on how to do that here on YouTube, so you can find that. If you were wanting to send your pattern out to, let's say, Staples, you could find out what their paper size is and go ahead and set up a custom paper size equal to what they tell you their paper size is. On the Mac, it's simple. You can, let me just, it's a little hard to see here, so I'm going to scoot up here so maybe we can actually see. There is a Manage Custom Sizes, and you can set new sizes if you like and type in the measurements. I always make sure that my pattern will fit in the piece. So I'll click inside a piece, and down, I have to get out of here so you can see that down here it will tell you. Now if you're on Windows, you can use a utility called Cute PDF or Bullzip to help you do this, because doing large page printing with Windows built-in PDF print is not simple. So these free utilities make it much easier. And once again, we have a posted video here on YouTube to help you with that. So that is it. You are ready to go. You have all the pages tiled and ready to print. And I suppose one last thing, if you want, is you could ask to generate a pattern layout. And in here, you can see all your pattern pieces. So you can start moving them around to see how much fabric do you need for this project. And so it's just bringing all your pieces, aligning them as you would, and making them fit. You can turn them upside down if the fabric is not a two-way print, or if it is a two-way print, and just start moving things around. Maybe you'll turn, I'm just pressing X, Y, and Z. Z does quarter turns. And right now I would need 55-inch fabric, 56-inch fabric, and I would need 1 3/4 yards. So it's doubling everything here as if I'm on the fold. So this can be printed, and so you would have a record of how much yardage you need. And certainly, if I want to start really getting creative and I can lay things on the cross grain or not, I might be able to save more fabric. So this is how our layout works, and this also saves with the file. So if I were to save my file, I can close this and then save the file again. This is part of the file. I hope that you have enjoyed this Quickie project. I would suggest that you walk through it with me, turning it on and off as you need, as you practice building the pattern, for those of you who own our software. And it's a great way to learn, and certainly it's great fun to have a project that you can make, possibly for the man in your life, or if you are a man, for yourself or for anyone else. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at info@Cochenille. Thank you for watching, and we will have more pattern quickies coming up. So please join our YouTube station and enjoy.